Near Protocol is set to make millionaires in 2025 due to its novel sharding approach Nightshade being fully implemented in late 2023. So guys, in this video, we're going to figure out why Near Protocol is one of the most promising blockchains to date with nothing but facts, so you're not going to want to miss this one. But we won't only be discussing Nightshade in more depth, also my price prediction, overall opinion, and more is still to come, guys, so if you've got a spare 20 minutes, you're not going to want to click away just yet. But before we do, a little word from our sponsor. It's me. Today marks the official launch of my Patreon, where you guys can get some behind the scenes information like AMAs, interviews, one-on-one calls, my personal investments, and much, much more. Guys, look, if you found any of my information on this channel valuable, then please take some time to have a quick look, because every cent I make over there will 100% be going into creating better and better content. Look, guys, thank you so much for your continued support. As always, as you should all know, it is greatly, greatly appreciated. So what the hell is Near Protocol and why is it named so strangely? Well guys, back in 2017, Near was founded by Ilya and Alex as Near AI with the goal of teaching machines how to program. However, as the project began to develop and therefore the team grew in size, they actually began working with people from all corners of the globe and quickly realizing that not everyone had access or equal access to bank accounts, internal transfer fees were exorbitantly high, and also relying on multiple custodians was impractical. And also, let's not forget that settlement times were very, very slow, to say the least. Suffice to say, everyone, paying the team was becoming increasingly challenging for these guys. So in response, they sought and developed a solution to this problem, as most of us sane people would do, which, of course, as you may have guessed, was just simply not paying them at all. No, look, of course, I'm just kidding. Or am I? In all seriousness, guys, these were the reasons why Ilya and Alex both turned to blockchain. As this was back in 2017 when there was much less development than there obviously is today, only some of their issues were initially solved as they quickly faced their next roadblock, Ethereum. Now, since Ethereum was the only viable option at the time, its unpredictable gas fees and still relatively fast but practically slow settlement times, in 2017 they decided to build their own blockchain to solve these issues. Drawing on their extensive education in IT and experience as developers, Ilya and Alex began transforming Near AI into Near Protocol over the subsequent 4 years, solving many of the issues still prevalent today along the way, ultimately spawning a successful multi-billion-dollar company. Now, with all the law on the table and everyone's box of tissues now possibly a couple short on our miners, let's go take a look under the hood. Near Protocol is a decentralized layer 1 blockchain that is powered by a proof-of-stake consensus algorithm. It's essentially a typical layer 1 network in that it provides the infrastructure for developers to create any type of decentralized application whilst being a little different from the rest. As I mentioned moments ago, Near implements sharding in its scalability approach that, at least for the most part, eliminates the need for layer 2 solutions, as I'm going to explain in just a moment. Now, with Near's novel approach to blockchain, it boasts an average transaction fee of this much, 1 second block times, 2 second finality for both intra and cross shard transactions, which I might have to say is extremely impressive, as well as TPS that deterministically changes with demand. Boom! Now, powering Near Protocol's consensus algorithm is a variant of proof of stake called threshold proof of stake, which is used in a really awesome way. Now, besides providing a means for Near to reach consensus, it ensures that all nodes in the network have a specific role to play in each epoch, which happens to be exactly every 12 hours. So, every 12 hours, threshold proof of stake assigns each node a new random role so that new, old, or offline nodes can be swapped while security is increased. Now, for the record, there is 3 main roles a node can be assigned to: either a block producer, chunk producer, or hidden validator, and actually also a much lesser integral part of Near called a fisherman, but we're not going to look into that guy just yet. Every round, threshold proof of stake determines how much it costs to become any one of these nodes, called a seat, which is the minimum amount of tokens a node needs to actually stake. Now, if a node stakes the minimum seat price, they will be allowed to begin validating in the next epoch. Now, would you believe me if I said the seat price is currently set at 25,588 Near, which kind of roughly translate to a crisp $46,271. I know it's quite expensive, but if you think that's high, back in 2021's bull market, this was over 150,000 Near, which meant running a validator node would have cost about $1.5 million. I know, right? absolutely nuts. Now, a little fact about these seats. They're capped at 100 validators per shard to ensure that NEAR remains as fast as possible in perpetuity. The reason is probably one that most of you might already know. The obviously more nodes you have validating a network, obviously the slower it becomes. Now, for the record, anyone that wants to understand sharding deeper, check out my review on Multiverse X up here. So as the current number of shards are capped at 4, this means there are currently 400 seats available on NEAR right now. And with over 850 active nodes and only 158 of them actually validating, that means there are 242 seats available, explaining why the seat price is so cheap compared to 2021. And if you want the TLDR, that's because back then there were only 100 seats available, meaning obviously less supply and a whole heap more demand. As NEAR's sharding approach is fully rolled out over the next 12 to 15 or so months, the total number of seats won't be capped at 400, rather, this will dynamically change to the number of shards on the network, which just simply all depends on demand. This means if the shards decrease to 3, for example, the network would only require 300 validators, or if demand was super high and the protocol required 100 shards, there would obviously be 10,000 seats available for 10,000 validators. It does just all depend. The way NEAR reaches consensus with threshold proof of stake is with the help of a protocol called Doomslug. But don't worry guys, Doomslug isn't as scary as it sounds, nor is it slow. It's actually quite the opposite really. Doomslug is more accurately a type of finality gadget in that it ensures almost instant finality and higher security because it prevents the blockchain from forking. In the case those nasty forks do occur, Doomslug ensures that they are short-lived and any node trying to build on the incorrect chain has their stake slashed, so they're kind of incentivized to be correct. To cut a very long story short, it means that NEAR can operate with a higher security threshold and liveliness over other proof-of-stake blockchains, which is obviously a very, very good thing. Next, we have the sharding approach, and yes, let me enunciate that nice and slowly, sharding, not sharding, you freaks. It's called Nightshade, which actually splits the network up a little differently than other blockchain sharding approaches. See, Nightshade means that on NEAR, there is only one blockchain being created at all times, called the main chain, which stores what are called chunks within each block. Each shard is home to a number of user wallets and decentralized applications that can be redistributed depending on how congested their shard is. This is actually super important in a network, and it's really good to see NEAR implementing. Now, the way these applications and wallets actually send their transactions and essentially communicate are via the chunks on their shard. You kind of might have already guessed, but chunk producers create these special little chunks which contain all the regular transaction-esque things and send it off to the main chain via a hash where it's added to the current block. This block is then put together by a group of block producers who add all the chunks together and push it off to the network. Now, this unique sharding approach means that NEAR only shards transaction and state and doesn't shard network as do other sharded blockchains like Multiverse X and Ethereum 2.0. Now, this means that NEAR can pretty much remain highly secure whilst being able to scale whatever demand needs the network to be, eventually even millions per second. But what this also accomplishes is that super fast cross-chain finality time I spoke about at the start of the video, as the way the chunks interact are the same for intra and both cross-shard transactions. Now, if you're wondering where the hidden validator role comes into the equation, let me enlighten you. Their duty is required at all levels of the network as validators maintain the state, which basically ensures the network stays alive. Now, no matter what shard they're assigned to perform, they all perform the same task in complete secrecy. And as a matter of fact, they're not even known to the network. If you're wondering why, it's basically because it's hard to attack someone when you don't know who the hell they are. So while this is extremely simple, it's crazy effective. But independent of what role a validator becomes during an epoch, NEAR aims to evenly distribute 4.5% of the total supply to all these validators over a year period as obviously rewards for their work. Now, the rewards are even for all the different types of validators because the hidden validators simply aren't known. Therefore, the rewards need to be equal because everyone would be getting some if they were block producers or chunk producers, and the poor hidden validators would get nothing for their work. However, guys, at the end of each epoch, the block and chunk producers are assigned based on their performance, so they can expect to receive their full portion of the rewards so long as they have hit the quota for the amount of blocks or chunks they needed to produce. Now, let me just say, for some of you critical thinkers out there, that doesn't actually mean inflation is 4.5% though. The team and foundation still need to be paid to develop and obviously grow the network. Therefore, 5% is the actual year-on-year inflation rate, with an additional 0.5% going to obviously those entities. Now, you might be wondering about the transaction fees. Wait, what's that? You're not? Well, look, I'm glad I am then. You see, NIA basically burns all transaction fees on the network, minus a few here and there for their, specialized purposes. Technically, it's 70% of every transaction, and the remaining 30% goes to the smart contract, obviously, if they were used during the transaction. Now, what this all means is that as the network begins to grow and grow and grow in popularity, the system will begin to turn deflationary over time. If you're wondering exactly when, well, I'll say it'll probably happen at the exact time the network burn fees eclipse the 5% inflation rate. Therefore, obviously, your tokens will pretty much be worth more simply just holding them. Plus, NIA has incorporated a feature that prevents users from including more gas to front run a transaction by making fees deterministic. So what this means is that you'll always know the cost of a transaction every single time, and in the case a user adds more gas, it's just simply refunded. Now, in my opinion, this is a mandatory feature for scalability and mass adoption, as you don't want to be playing decentralized chess and pretty much have someone make their next move before you've even made yours. Also, one other thing I feel obligated to mention is the development of Nightshade. Now, recently, NIA underwent phase 1 of Nightshade, adding the chunk producers into the network, thus increasing the total number of seats to 400, obviously therefore further decentralizing the protocol. Now, phase 2, which is set to arrive sometime within the next few months, introduces a complete transaction and state sharded network, meaning the block producing validators aren't required to track all the shards, and therefore their hardware requirements will also be reduced, in turn decentralizing the network even more. Now, phase 3 is the third and final stage, at least for now, which will allow the network to dynamically split or merge shards depending on resource utilization. Now, this will mean that NIA will pretty much be infinitely scalable, resistant to short-term usage spikes, and won't fall victim to a lack of nodes. This will also allow the decentralized applications to be automatically moved from shard to shard by the protocol at the end of each epoch, depending on how congested that particular shard is. Now, I know what some of you might be thinking, oh my God, these 3 different phases, where are we at right now? What's he explained? Look, I don't want you to worry. Throughout this video, I mostly explain NIA as if these phases were already implemented to ensure nothing was misunderstood. But overall, guys, NIA has a fantastic foundation for the technicals, so I'm giving her a 9 out of 10. It kind of just falls short on the 10 because this is all technically still theoretical. Once it's tried, tested, and working, then I'll have no issues. But again, I can't give it perfect scores if it isn't fully working just yet. Stay tuned to the very end, guys, as I'll be rating NIA another 3 more times between now and then, so you'll know exactly where they're killing it. As for the ecosystem, we're looking at approximately 750 projects currently native or otherwise interoperable with NIA, meaning it's one of the largest in the industry. And that's probably because NIA allows developers to build in familiar programming languages without steep learning curves like Rust and AssemblyScript. It's also a direct result of the gigantic $800 million funding round that commenced back in October of 2021. Now, the round is actually broken up into still large, but yet smaller rounds to encompass all facets of NIA's plan for global adoption, focusing both inwards at the ecosystem and obviously how the foundation can continue adding adoption. With 10 of the top 12 projects ranked on TVL being native to the NIA ecosystem, this provides a little insight into the current status of the network. In my opinion, when native dApps are thriving in a layer 1 ecosystem, it's usually a result of low fees, fast speeds, minimal to no congestion, and a quality application environment, something NIA currently already has. Look, the reason why I say already is because we're only really halfway through the rollout of Nightshade. When Nightshade is fully released, I believe it'll pretty much be open floodgates for demand, as any friction will be pretty much a thing of the past and developers will soak that shit up pronto. You can bet that. But as of right now, there still is a very healthy $78.31 million in total value locked in its ecosystem, with Ref Finance, the largest DeFi application on NIA, currently contributing to a 73.25% of that total, being about $57.4 million. However, guys, this is actually quite significant compared to the whopping $885 million in staked NIA between the active validators, which is around 57% of the market cap. Now, for a bear market, I must say that is quite impressive. And again, I hate to keep saying it, but this is especially good for a protocol that isn't even completely rolled out yet. However, I must say that 33% of the stake in the network is currently controlled by the top 9 validators, which is not decentralized by means of security. So you guys can just kind of keep that in mind. It is something quite common though in basically every blockchain system, proof of work and proof of stake alike, because projects like Cardano, for example, have, 80% of the supply in the top 100 wallets, and Bitcoin has over 51% of the hash power in only 3 mining pools, as just 2 examples. So just an FYI, for those of you who are wanting to delegate your NIA to earn rewards, I suggest you delegate to smaller validators, as you won't earn more for pooling, and therefore you'll pretty much help solve this issue. All that stuff aside though, perhaps one of the most prominent ecosystem applications is Octopus Network, which utilizes NIA as its sort of beacon chain to launch and run substrate-based EVM-compatible application-specific blockchains. Holy crap, what a mouthful. What this actually means is that projects can use Octopus Network to create blockchains that are native to EVM-compatible networks like NIA and Ethereum, whilst also being native to substrate-based ones like Polkadot and Kusama. Therefore, it pretty much acts as a native interoperability infrastructure for developers wanting an instant and seamless connection between all of the ecosystem powerhouses. What this provides for NIA is far more interoperability with larger ecosystems, and the new DApps built on Octopus can be leveraged by NIA's ecosystem as well. Now, kind of speaking of the EVM, Aurora is another prominent DApp built on NIA that acts as an instance of the Ethereum virtual machine. This allows developers to deploy their smart contracts from Ethereum using Solidity or Viper directly over to Aurora without changing a single line of code. All the while, users are able to pay fees in ETH, yet leverage NIA's speed and fast finality. In addition, guys, Aurora also has its own bridge to Ethereum that offers token and data transfers for a hell of a lot more flexibility, which actually adopts NIA's custom-built Rainbow Bridge technology. For those of you who are wondering what the hell the Rainbow Bridge is, it was actually designed by NIA to allow users to send any information to and from Ethereum with the ability to perform more than just simply token transfers. For example, events such as voting on Ethereum proposals without sending a single transaction and maintaining your ETH balance on NIA is just one of the many possibilities here. Now, I think this was a fantastic decision by the NIA team, as in my opinion, Ethereum will remain the #1 smart contract ecosystem for at least the next 5 to 10 years, and being interoperable in nature will always be necessary, contingent obviously on a full ETH 2.0 rollout, of course. Plus, NIA has also partnered with Icon, which is a protocol that facilitates cross-chain transfers between smart contract-enabled networks by way of their blockchain transmission protocol. Now, this means that NIA has access to the Binance Smart Chain, Algorand, Harmony, Polkadot via Moonbeam, and Kusama via Moonriver, which is insanely good if you ask me. But wait, there is more. NIA has also partnered with a project called Adrana that allows cross-chain transfers between NIA and Cardano, and also a project called Multichain to also connect even more blockchains like the ones you can currently see on your screen now. So let me hit you with some ecosystem facts before we move on. Daily transactions are currently averaging around 350,000, and the total number of transactions since the protocol's first block back in July of 2020 has reached an astonishing 260 million. Now, the total number of new accounts to date has swelled to 23 million, a massive 800% increase in only 1 year. Out of those 23 million, there are reportedly 42,000 active per day, which has actually been on a steady decline ever since mid-September 2022. Now, the daily number of active contracts has been on a similar yet much more controlled downward trend since around the same time as well, but that's kind of not to say that NIA has a low number of active developers either, as it's currently ranked 6th on the highest active developer chart. As we are kind of now moving into the coldest parts of the bear market, the decline in interest from developers and users kind of doesn't really surprise me at all. Pretty much the end of the day, guys, projects run out of funding and need to make cuts, and users run out of patience, which does usually resolve when the markets begin to turn hot again. All in all, these stats are really far from bad. NIA is currently ranked at number 32 on the crypto market cap rankings, yet it beats pretty much a lot of the higher ranked competitors. In my opinion, I'm more than happy to give Nia a 9.5 out of 10 here, but I would have liked if the TVL were more diversified in the ecosystem, but hey, at the end of the day, guys, we're still early. Now it is time to hit you with some speed round facts on the fundamentals. There were a total of 1 billion tokens created on the 22nd of April 2020, otherwise known as Genesis. Now that does not mean there will only ever be 1 billion tokens either. If the 5% inflation rate is not eclipsed by the transaction fees, then Nia will continue to soar well above the initial distribution. However, I will almost certainly say that it will adopt a deflationary status sometime within the next 5 to 10 years. I can pretty much tell you that for sure. Now, the 1 billion tokens are distributed accordingly. First of all, the core contributors, who are the team, were given 140 million tokens, aka about 14% of the supply, all receiving an evenly distributed proportion per person. Now, they will have complete access to their tokens come the maximum vesting of 5 years, which works out to be April of 2025. Now, the backers consisted of both small and large venture capitalists with the goal of ensuring a fair distribution and launch, as Nia has stated that they were trying to encourage smaller entities to spin up validators early in the protocol. Now, the criteria Nia imposed when sourcing these backers can be seen on screen now. Despite these requirements, Nia carefully chose who and how much each backer was to receive, ensuring no one entity holds more than 3.5% of the supply, with very few holding even more than 1%. So as you can see from this screenshot, the total funding between both of these rounds came to 23.7%, or 237 million tokens, which actually worked out to be a total of $34 million. You'll also notice on the screenshot the price Nia sold their tokens per funding round, and obviously the earlier the funding round, the cheaper the tokens were for the investors. These guys have their tokens vesting between 1 to 3 years, with the majority sitting in the middle at about 2. Basically, the cheaper the tokens, the less they are drip fed over the same course of time as the other kind of more expensive rounds, which just makes the most amount of sense to me. Now, the team and the backers are what I call third parties, which are essentially those who hold the largest bags at the cheapest prices. And kind of now that we have understood where their tokens are unlocked and in what quantity, we can make the safe assumption that the team is in this for the long run, and the backers will essentially have all their tokens come the start of the 2024 bull market. I guess the overarching question is, am I concerned? Well, absolutely not. Nia has ensured that large sell-offs won't impact the price all that much due to their minuscule distribution between the backers, and at that, they have chosen them for their long-term perspective. Remember, guys, they were actually very, very picky there. Now, I don't really need to go into the remainder of the distribution, as these are all either ecosystem or foundation related, with obviously the community round being in there as well. If you did want to take a closer look, here is the screenshot, but I won't waste your precious time reading the specifics. If you want to read more, you know where to find the link. So as for the vesting and distribution, guys, I've got to say this is probably one of the best I have ever seen, both presentation, transparency, and actual vesting wise. Now you get a solid 10 out of 10 here. Now there are some quite impressive names on the venture capital list, but they're mainly all crypto native, and as most of you should know by now, I'm hyper-focused on the multi-industry VCs that have been in the game for a long time. But that doesn't necessarily mean it's bad, it just means that I don't kind of favor them. Although I must say, with Nia protocol being where it is now, the quality of the early investors ain't really that worthy of a discussion at this point, nor is the kind of equity raised in the funding rounds. All I would say is just keep in mind that Pantera, 3 Arrows Capital, and FTX have all invested in Nia in the early rounds, meaning when or if you catch any wind of a liquidation day, you might as well snag Nia at a slight discount. So because the investors don't play such a prominent role anymore, instead I'll rate Nia on its defensibility. And to keep it quite simple, there are decent network effects where I've definitely seen better. And on the other hand, scale is also beginning to ramp up as large name companies like the recent Google Cloud partnerships do begin to form. However, due to the relatively early stage we do find the protocol in, I suspect Nia will begin reaching the tip of the so-called scale throttle between 2024 and probably about 2026. But again, that's probably where it'll start going parabolic. There actually is also a mild form of embedding in Nia, but I guess you could kind of say that about any other layer 1 blockchains with an application environment. In this case, the extent of the embedding rating will pretty much depend on how many native networks there are on the network, as well as their overall performance, adoption, and of course, TVL. Similarly, the token is also part of a project's Defensibility, which is obviously the NEAR token. As we've kind of seen on multiple occasions, now NEAR is a typical network token that ensures smart contracts and users can interact to obviously perform transfers or executions between them, just like you see on Ethereum. Now, ultimately, with almost 60% of the network being staked or delegated, I can safely assume demand for the token is definitely there, and therefore there is pretty much a moat protecting the protocol from essentially being replicated and competed. So overall, 7.5 out of 10 for defensibility. Now, with all that said, guys, time for my highly anticipated price prediction. But before we do, if you are a NEAR fan and love the project, send me an email and join the NEAR community on my Discord server. It's kind of a sub server where anyone can talk NEAR with its own set of community leads, moderators, and more. So if you'd like to join as a community lead, let me know, as there's no qualifications obviously required, and I fully intend for you to be compensated. All I require is that you're a fan of NEAR protocol and are willing to keep the community entertained and update me on related events. Okay, so what we need to do is find future demand, and the only way we kind of do that is assuming what the market cap will be in the next bull market. Now, if you're asking me, this is pretty much impossible to accurately predict. So what I'm going to do is safely assume at least a 2x in adoption from the previous bull market's all-time high, at least for the kind of promising large cap projects. And I do this pretty much in the same sense with a 4x for micro to mid cap projects. This would place NEAR at a 2x from its all-time high market cap of $12.43 billion. However, based on the momentum I believe NEAR has coming into the next bull market, I honestly would safely assume a 3 or 4x from that mark. So if we can kind of safely assume demand will ramp up 3x from $12.43 billion, that would place a $37.29 billion valuation on NEAR's head. So in that case, next we have to find supply, and this is actually super simple. Based on the vesting schedule, there should be around 1.2 billion tokens in circulation, but that does not include burnt tokens, of course, because there's no way I'm going to be able to estimate that. Now, with the basic supply and demand accounted for, we can assume that the price per token in around October 2024 should be about $31. So with that in mind, this would place my conservative, and let me repeat that for those who don't actually hear what I'm saying, conservative price prediction at a 17x from the current price of $1.80. Now look, I'm not here to shill you NEAR protocol and promise you high returns. What I'm kind of trying to do is promise you that ladder selling at the $31 level is probably a wise decision to make, even though I know a hell of a lot of you aren't going to still do that. Look guys, don't not get me wrong, an almost 20x in 2 years is unreal, but for the bloodthirsty degens out there, I know that's the equivalent of nails on a chalkboard. Look guys, in all honesty and complete transparency, I fully expect the price to go well beyond my prediction. It just does depend on how NEAR executes itself over the coming 2 years and how well the entire industry performs as a whole. Look, my non-financial advice would be to take profits at this price range and don't get caught with your pants down. One really awesome thing to see, and something that's a bit relieving to the future kind of success of NEAR, is to see their commitment to winding down the UST stablecoin equivalent, USN, that adopted a very similar algorithmically backed protocol. Now, USN was actually created by a DAO on NEAR, yet the NEAR Foundation allocated $14 million to replenish the recent depegging of the asset and has pretty much since begun teething away from it, something that shows the ability for the team to recognize and stay away from unproven or very risky tech. So guys, obviously in my eyes, this would have been a huge red flag if it hadn't been resolved, but since it's somewhat new news, I kind of just thought I'd throw it in there. Overall, my opinion on NEAR is nothing but quality. I can't wait to review the protocol in my full technical and fundamental breakdown in the future, and I hope you are too. Now, seeing as I can only rate NEAR protocol on a select number of variables, I do feel like it's slightly unjustified to claim the rating is the be-all and end-all, but cumulatively, the score came to a total of 36 out of 40. Yeah, look, I do know that's still probably quite impressive, but the sky is really the limit here, and I can't really see anything at this stage stopping NEAR. And that'll do it, guys. Thank you so much for watching this video. I can't wait to see you all in the next one. For now, bye.